You're watching the Daily Climate Show on Sky News. On today's programme, as global temperatures tick up, the UK government is criticised for not living up to its promises on tackling climate change. How switching to more sustainable farming techniques could help cut carbon emissions. And pointless by name, but not by nature. We meet the founder of an online plant shop with a difference. Hello and welcome to the UK's only daily climate news show, where we track the changes happening to our world right now and meet those coming up with the solutions. Now, 9 out of 10 for ambition, 4 out of 10 for policies to get there. That is the verdict of the latest report from the Independent Climate Change Committee, which advises the government. It says that ministers have made historic climate promises in the past year, for which they deserve credit, but have been far too slow to follow these with detailed plans and delivery. The committee made more than 200 recommendations, including managing the phase-out of gas boilers, only building new roads if they can be shown they won't increase emissions, bringing forward regulations to ensure all new homes are built to low-carbon standards, and a public information campaign to explain to people the changes that are needed, such as cutting down on the amount of meat we eat. Well, the report comes ahead of the crucial United Nations COP26 climate summit, which the UK is hosting in November. But the chief executive of the Climate Change Committee, Chris Stark, says more needs to be done before then if government efforts are to be taken seriously.
I think we have to give the Prime Minister and this government credit for setting these ambitious targets. Now, that has been a big part of the last 12 months. We've set a really ambitious set of targets for 2030 and for 2035 to complement the net zero target that we already have in the UK. But what we haven't seen from the government is the kind of detailed plans on how we will reach those targets. What the government seem to be doing is looking out to the weeks before COP26 to a new strategy for net zero. And they seem to be putting all of their emphasis on the production of that strategy. And that's quite a high stakes gamble.
Well, the government's defended its policies and ambition. In a statement, a spokesperson said, "Any suggestion we have been slow to deliver climate action is widely off the mark. Over the past 3 decades, we have driven down emissions by 44%, the fastest reduction of any G7 country. Our forthcoming strategies on heat and buildings, hydrogen transport and comprehensive net zero strategy this year will set out more of the very policies the Climate Change Committee is calling for as we redouble our efforts to end the UK's contribution to climate change." Well, let's bring in now Chaitanya Kumar, Head of Environment at the New Economics Foundation. Really good to talk to you. There's a pretty big gap, isn't there, in that report between the promises of the government and delivery. How large is that gap in your estimation?
Well, the government's climate advisors, the Climate Change Committee, are fairly clear. They lay out a pathway between where we ought to be in about 14 years and where we are now. And the gap is roughly based on existing policies. We'd probably get about less than halfway where we need to be by 2035. So it's fairly significant, the gap between rhetoric and reality.
And there are certain bits of government, aren't there, which are further off the mark than others?
That's right. The committee doesn't hold back in basically singling out the Treasury and MHCLG, and the Ministry for Housing and Communities, for really sort of being very slow on acting on climate change and sometimes actively blocking climate action. I think that's quite a charge, especially with the Treasury, because the Treasury, as we all know, holds the purse strings for a lot of climate action and funding climate policy. If Treasury isn't playing ball, then it's very difficult to see how we will get ourselves on track to net zero.
Now, there's a very long laundry list of recommendations, some 200. Which of them do you think could and should be implemented straight away and indeed ahead of COP26?
2 things I'd be very interested in personally. One is on public engagement. That's been the biggest sort of missing piece in this puzzle. We know changes have to be made, but if we don't level with people, then we have a challenge. We need to let people adopt a low carbon lifestyle, and that won't happen, without government support. Heat pumps, electric vehicles won't subsidize themselves. We need government intervention there. The second key recommendation, I think, is how do we really support local and regional authorities? I believe they're quite central to achieving net zero, but a decade of austerity and lack of resources has meant what is an important lever in public engagement and implementing solutions is largely missing from the picture.
Chaitanya Kumar, good to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
In today's other climate news, the UK firm Storegga and its Canadian partner Carbon Engineering have begun designing a direct air facility in Scotland. The companies say that the plant will permanently remove between 500,000 and 1 million tonnes of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere every year. It would be the first large-scale facility of its kind in Europe and aims to be fully operational by 2026. Organisers of a new environmental project in the Yorkshire Dales say it will demonstrate how the UK's uplands can be transformed to help fight climate change. The scheme will re-establish peatlands and create new woodland across 1,200 hectares of land around Ingleborough to remove and store carbon. The partnership behind the project say it's an important step ahead of the COP26 summit in Glasgow, due to take place in November. Microsoft is being urged to use its own video conferencing tools to keep its corporate travel at 2020 levels. The Just Use Teams campaign says that the company should set an example to others by using its platform Teams instead of asking US employees to fly to face-to-face meetings. Campaigners claim Microsoft employees have their own check-in lane at Seattle Airport. Microsoft says it's committed to become carbon negative by 2030. And a remote UK overseas territory will be given protected status to conserve its wildlife. It will cover the entire area of South Georgia and the South Sandwich Islands, nearly 1,500 square miles, home to seabirds, seals and vast colonies of penguins. Its government says it will focus on preserving the island's ecosystems and protect biodiversity. This week, thousands of farmers are coming together to discuss innovative ways to make farming more sustainable and to help address climate change. Globally, it's estimated that 20 kilograms of topsoil is lost for every 1 kilo of food produced from industrialised farming. Well, that's because it relies on harmful chemicals, heavy machinery and ploughing, which damages the soil. And with more than 95% of our food coming from the ground, it's vital that farmers protect and nurture it. Well, they're being encouraged to move towards agricultural methods which are more environmentally friendly. These include tilling farm fields less to help the land store CO2, making use of renewable energy sources and planting a wider variety of crops. Sustainable farming can use up to 56% less energy per unit of crops produced, and it creates 64% less CO2 emissions per hectare of land. Well, one person who knows what a difference sustainable farming can make is Thomasina Myers. She's co-founder of the restaurant chain Oaxaca, which was certified carbon neutral in 2016, and it aims to use products from regenerative farming. Thomasina, good to talk to you. You must have to do a lot of work to check out exactly where your ingredients are coming from and what methods they use.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge part of what we do, because we believe it's so important to put incredible ingredients on our plates, not just because we believe it's vital to support these farmers who can play such a huge part in mitigating climate change and helping the government meet those carbon targets, but also because we really believe that that food that they produce in better soil has way more nutrition in it than food produced in these more conventional methods, which are so bad for soil erosion. The soil that those conventional methods use is really depleted in nutrition, as opposed to healthy soil, which really does produce better food.
We were saying in the introduction there, you went carbon neutral back in 2016. That's before many other restaurateurs, I'd imagine, were on board. What were the biggest challenges for taking that path back then?
So I think actually it's been a wonderful journey. We work across our board from how we build our restaurants, how we recycle our materials, we recycle our food waste, we take the hot or air from our fridges and freezers and divert it, heat up our hot water. So there's actually really lovely kind of fun ways you can mitigate climate change in that way. And then, in terms of offsetting carbon, there are really great projects you can get on board. And we try and link ours back to Mexico where we can. I think the great piece here is that if the government is clever, farmers can be such a huge part in climate mitigation because healthy soil stores huge amounts of carbon. We're talking about the rainforest, equalising. So we can't grow rainforests here, but we can have really brilliantly healthy soil. And with the government's new food strategy, if they can really get behind the farmers to help them do the best thing, these farmers want to do the best thing. They want to be taking their part in creating biodiversity, having holistic farming methods where they're diverting monoculture into, multicultural. So they're just promoting diversity, helping soil health, and producing much better food.
It's so interesting talking to you, Thomasina Myers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Now, what are your goals for the next 4 years? Well, for one former pilot, he's got lofty ambitions to plant 1 million trees by 2025. Nathan Raab founded Pointless Plants to try and offer a more sustainable option for those looking to test out their green fingers by banning plastic pots, peat-based soil and plant wastage. Here's his story.
Welcome to my Pointless Plants crib. Hi guys, I'm Nathan Raab, I'm the founder of Pointless Plants. Here is all of our plants. We're on a mission to plant 1 million trees by the end of 2025. For every order, we plant 10 trees. I'm 24 years old and I was a pilot for 4 years, flying around and spraying tons and tons of fuel. I've seen big organisations and companies putting profits over people and the planet. That really just did not fulfill me. So this is a plant I love. It's a Calathea lancifolia. There's a lot of information out there. For example, we plant 10 trees for every order, and we do this to reduce carbon. And there's always so much new information. Now it looks like algae might be a better way to reduce carbon. So there's so much information. It's sometimes hard to know what the right thing to do, but I really feel like small changes can make a really big difference. So planting 10 trees is better than planting no trees. I believe it is my responsibility to do what I can do to try and make this planet a greener place.
That's it for today's show. Coming up on the Daily Climate Show tomorrow, our correspondent Adam Parsons reports on the villages in Germany being demolished to make way for the expansion of a vast coal mine. You can see that at the same time tomorrow here on Sky News or watch the full show on YouTube. Hope to see you then.